All right, good evening, everyone. Let's go ahead and get started this evening. I know some of you may still be, or there may still be some of you logging in. So during introductions and everything, we'll allow that to take place. But first off, I want to thank all of you for being with us here tonight for our third girls lacrosse webinar with Colleen. We appreciate her taking the time to do these for us. Deb Wilson and Lou from USA Lacrosse. We appreciate them kind of helping us as we've mentioned and partnered with them and getting these going for us as well. As we've done in the past, please use the the Q&A box at the bottom if you have any questions throughout the session. Try to keep these to an hour. We try to respect everyone's time, knowing that we all have families and jobs and outside other outside items that have to be taken care of that are important as well. So please feel free if you have to log off at any time to do so. The webinars are recorded. They are posted on the FHSAA Central Hub, usually within 24 hours of the presentation. So if you do have to miss any of it or leave early, please feel free within 24 hours to go back to take a look at it. So without further ado, Colleen, it's all yours.
Thank you, Jeremy. For those of you that have not been on a call yet, my name is Colleen Spiegelhoff. I am a national lead official, a national clinician for USA Lacrosse, and the chair of the Women's Officials Educational Development Committee at USA Lacrosse. We are working, USA Lacrosse and FHSAA have partnered together this year, and one of the things we wanted to get to you was an update on the rule changes for 2022. And so we'll run through that. It's hard for me to check the chat while I'm doing this. I'll do my best, but if you put questions in there, I can definitely check the chat at the end if we have time. So let's begin. Okay. In 2022, beginning in 2022, officials are no longer going to be worried about how many players are on the field. We had this thing where we had to have a certain number on the field and then who was on the field, whatever. So basically what this says is we're just making it easier. You just need to know that there are no more than 12 players on the field from each team and that they're obviously on sides before you're blowing the whistle to restart play. We're allowing substitutions during an injury timeout, during a redraw, and basically just trying to make the game flow a little bit more smoothly. And that's our goal here. There's been a lot of changes with what is now permitted and or not permitted with personal equipment and goalie equipment. With the goalies, it's now the goalie's choice to wear or not wear shin protection at the high school level only. For youth, we do still require them to wear shin protection, but at the high school level only, it is no longer a requirement. As I said, the youth rules are going to continue to require it for now, and the whole idea being that we're making it more consistent between the girls and boys game. Additionally, for the goalies are now allowed to wear tinted eye shields. They're allowed to wear sunglasses underneath their helmets. They cannot make changes to their helmet from the manufacturers. That hasn't changed. They can't add things to the helmet except for, I think the phrase is paint decals or tape are the only adornments to be permitted to be added to the helmet. So they can't put anything additionally on the helmet if they want. That's not allowed. I did say that they can wear the eye shields, and they can also wear a tinted eye shield, sunglasses underneath or a tinted eye shield, which is obviously still in keeping with NFHS codes. So here are a couple of things that they can wear. The sunglasses, fine. The tinted eye shield right there, fine. The idea being that if they were to get injured before, we didn't want anything tinted so we couldn't see their eyes to see if there was a potential for concussion. But now with the ease of removing these face plates on all the goalie helmets, it's no longer necessary. And unfortunately, even though Jeremy's logging for it, really pushing for it, we cannot allow the green mohawks on the helmets either. So these are all things that the two on the left are allowed, the green mohawks are not. Going to personal equipment, face masks. This allows that face masks that are worn in response to health or the COVID concerns are soft, non-abrasive. Those are fine. Anything that's worn for religious reasons as well is also okay. But the hard, unyielding face protections, many times girls have a broken nose and they'll get from their doctor a face plate. It's a clear plastic face plate, which I will show you right there on the right there. That is still illegal. That is not allowed. So the idea being that anything that's soft, that is non-abrasive, that is of no danger to anyone else is going to be allowed, like the face masks. The hard, unyielding plastic masks are still not allowed. They have not been allowed, and yet every year somebody asks if they're allowed. They are not permitted in NFHS rules. Additionally, we're sort of backing off a little on the idea of what's allowed for personal equipment and the hair and the arm. They're basically no longer illegal as long as they're soft, non-rigid, and again, are no way endangering other players. Unless something that a player is wearing is clearly a safety concern, we no longer have to worry about it. We used to have to do this big check of their entire person when they came for the stick checks and get them to get the hair ties off. All that's okay. So here we're all talking, all of these are okay. The beads in the hair, as long as they're securely fastened, they're not going to fall off and potentially injure anyone. As I said, the hair ties, wristbands are fine, and those big colorful scrunchies, which amazingly are back in style, and those are fine too. As I said, the face masks for religious reasons are allowed, but so is headwear for religious and/or cosmetic reason. Again, soft, non-abrasive, not worried, not in any way endangering anyone else. The head coverings worn for medical reasons require state association approval. So as per the FHSAA, if a school does have an athlete who needs to wear a head covering for medical reasons, they need to contact Alex Ozuna, and then Alex would issue an approval letter that the school could show officials prior to the game so that there are no issues. So like, again, here we are, all of these are legal, they're soft, they're no way endangering anyone, but that helmet on the right, it is a soft helmet, but that would have to have approval by the FHSAA, and the coach is required to have that approval with them, that approval letter with them, to show to the officials prior to the game, prior to it being worn, excuse me. Officials may use headsets. In the state of Florida, it's very rare, but in many states up north that have field hockey or soccer, that more and more officials are using headsets. They've always been allowed, but this is just sort of the FHSAA, or sorry, the NFHS way of clarifying that, yes, it's clearly stated it is allowed. Again, not required by any means, but it is allowed if the officials choose to wear them. Okay, the stop clock changes. No more of this last 2 minutes stuff that confused us, confused the players, confused everyone. This is much easier to officiate, and it's really more consistent for the players. When the players were getting involved in the game and really getting into the game, it was really hard for them to slow down the last 2 minutes of each half. So basically what we're saying now is if a foul occurs in the CSA in the last 2 minutes of each half and all of overtime, the clock will stop. That's the only time it will stop, during the last 2 minutes of each half or on overtime. Or sorry, after a goal, it also stops. I apologize. But what I'm saying is there's no longer this stop clock on every whistle that it used to be in the last 2 minutes of the half. So now it eliminates that requirement, and it only stops during the last 2 minutes if there's a foul in the critical scoring area. And I think there's already a question. Let me see if I can get this up. Yeah, Dave says, can't the players wear helmets? But that's not a leather headpiece. You said needs permission. Yes, obviously. Sorry, Dave, you're absolutely right. FHSAA requires that all players wear helmets that are certified and that are ASTM certified. That helmet was for medical reasons, a different type of thing, and it does need an approval by FHSAA. Good question. Thank you. I think I jumped ahead there. Okay, so I covered this. Officials, the second part of that, though, is the officials' timeouts now include alternate possession, inadvertent whistle, and offside. So if you're calling any of those things, you do call a timeout first with the big timeout signal, and then you're going to set up the penalty or the possession as needed. The exception to the rule is that there is a running, if there is a running clock for a 10-goal differential, then the clock will continue to run even if there is a foul in the CSA during the last 2 minutes of each half or of overtime. So that 10-goal differential has not changed. It will still run regardless. Okay, team timeouts. If the goalie has the ball and a possession timeout is called, the game will restart with the ball with the goalie. It used to be that the goalie had to take the ball from the goal circle and go to the dot. And now what we're saying is that's really not fair. So if she has the ball and they call a possession timeout, she stays in the circle with the ball, and then the count continues from wherever it stopped. So if the count stopped, if the count was at 4 and then they called possession timeout, absolutely fine. They have a timeout. When they leave and then come back, it's a restart with the whistle, and that restart, the count will begin at 5. So you start she doesn't get a new count just because they called timeout. That count stays the same. The difference is they can take the timeout. And a reminder, anybody can sub during that timeout with the exception of the players who are involved in a free position if there was a foul. So if we call a timeout and there's a free position, we're going to set up the play at the free position. If it's an 8-meter going in and it was a defensive foul, and so attack's getting the ball, we'll set that up on the 8-meter and they will resume the free position at the spot that the free position was set up. What I'd like to suggest people to do in this situation is you've called the foul, you're going to set it up, and the team calls timeout. Before you allow the 2 players involved in the foul, which would be the girl who was the player who was fouled and the player who committed the foul, set them up, put them where you want them on the hash, put the other player 4 meters behind on the 12-meter or wherever it is that this foul is taking place in the critical scoring area. Set that up and then allow them to leave to go take their timeout, and then you start the timeout timing from that point. That way you know exactly where the position is going to be set up, and you can even ask them to drop their sticks and leave their sticks at that spot. So then when they come back, you'll know you have the right players involved for the free position. Another question, are the officials required to signal time is stopped with the foul in the CSA? Yes, that would be a timeout signal that tells the people on the clock that, yep, this is my timeout signal. I'm going to stop the clock. I'm going to set everything up, and we would restart with the whistle. Another question, how would you suggest handing a leading team handling? Sorry, that's what that says. How would you suggest handling a leading team fouling repetitively outside the CSA under 2 minutes as a means to run out the clock? Yellow card for repetitive foul. Just keep stopping the clock. Excellent question, Claire. We always have our cards and we are always able to elevate fouls. So let's play this scenario. They're outside and they're trying to run out the clock under 2 minutes and they are just empty checking. Well, that's a minor foul. If you have multiple empty checks, you can elevate that to a major foul. If they continue to have fouls, you can elevate that. Repetitive fouls can be elevated to a card. So yeah, I would say a repetitive foul card would probably be a really good way to handle that. You definitely can't, you don't have to wait for an extended period of time to make that repetitive foul call either. If it's blatantly obvious what's happening and the players are being asked to do this or told or think they should do this repeatedly and they're doing it in quick succession, you can call timeout and card that repetitive foul. You want to give the card and then say yellow card number 8 white for repetitive foul, and then you turn the ball over from the spot of the foul and go there. Great question. Okay, no open questions. Whoop. Oh, I think I jumped one. Hold on. Nope. Did I jump ahead? No, we got this one. Okay, the goalkeeper keeps the ball. All right, let's move on. Oh, I should note that the officials note down here, regardless of which way the ball's going, it is a whistle to start play. So if we do have an attack foul and it comes out to the top of the 8, it's still a whistle to restart play. It's a whistle to allow that defensive player to take the ball down to the other end of the field. Okay. Cross exchanges. All right. So with the establishment of the draw stick, everyone seems to have a stick that they only take the draw with and then a stick to play with, because usually the draw stick is a really hard stick to play with. It is strung oddly and is very hard to throw accurately. So these people that are taking the draw, take their draw, and then they run over to exchange the stick. Excuse me. What they need to do is, because the stick itself is being substituted, and that's your mindset, that's what you can think about. The stick is being substituted, so it has to happen in the substitution area, in the sub box. However, if I'm playing and my shaft breaks in the middle of a play and my equipment is broken, I can go to the bench, to the bench area, to the sideline of the field and pick up a stick right there. I do not have to go through the sub box for that. For a broken equipment, I can pick it up wherever I want. If I'm going to exchange sticks, it has to happen in the sub box. To that point, the stick is not going to get in the sub box by itself. So a player or a coach may step into the sub box with the stick that's being exchanged and make that exchange. They may not hang out in the box. They may not stay there for an extended period of time, but if the exchange is happening, they can step in, make the exchange, and step out. The officials note on this one, we say this is not a gotcha call. We are not going to be so focused on whether they get both of their feet in the sub box or out of the sub box that we are jumping on this substitution thing. That's really not the intent of the rule. And quite frankly, if you have enough time to be watching that this substitution is taking place correctly, then you're probably missing something else on the field. So what we want to do here is say, hey, this is the way the subs need to be made, and please do it consistently, and ask the players to do it consistently as well. See another question. Has there been consideration given to allowing advantage on a very late in the game, then at a stoppage, to be able to then go back and card? These tactical fouls have become more noticeable in 1-goal games with the free movement, as it is to the defending team's advantage to commit a foul to allow them to get back in defensive position. I think I'm understanding the question here, Richard. If I'm not, feel free to put some more in. But what that foul is would be trying to slow down a fast break, is what we call a breakdown foul. And the goal has nothing to do with playing the ball. The goal has to do with literally slowing down the player to allow everyone to get back in the right area for coverage. There's no reason that foul should be let go and allow them to play on. That is an immediate whistle. If that foul if the action is indeed a foul, that should be an immediate whistle in the middle of the field. There's no reason to flag that or to signal advantage and come back. That's a middle of the field call. And if it's cardable, if it's a foul that's strong enough that it is cardable, we're stopping the clock. So we're not disadvantaging that team. When you think about it in terms of a fast break and that girl is fouled and the defense is allowed to sort of, drop back and cover again, then you aren't you would think initially, oh, wow, I'm disadvantaging the team by not allowing her to continue. But one, she's been knocked off her path. So the advantage she had on that fast break has definitely been affected. And two, more importantly, they're now playing with the player down. They're playing against a team with the player down. And that's a big penalty. So, well, yes, I understand that many times people feel, oh, I should let her go. I should let her go. If that is a midfield foul, you need to call that right away, call timeout, card it if necessary. Well, I should say, if necessary to card it, call timeout, but call that foul in the midfield. Now, if that exact same thing happens in the critical scoring area, you've answered your own question. You can immediately call timeout in the critical scoring area or pull a flag. So the advantage signal doesn't really work in this situation because it's in the midfield, and that's not the intent of the advantage signal. The advantage signal in the midfield is to basically say, I saw this player was fouled, but the player with the ball carrier was able to continue on their course, and I'm going to allow play to continue. If it's a hard enough foul that it has knocked her off her path and allowed other people to get back, you definitely want to put a whistle on that. And I hope, Richard, I answered that correctly. If there's more to that, let me know. And where's my cursor? Okay. So, okay, we talked about the exchange and the sub-backs, and let's move on. Player positioning for penalties at center. So what we used to do is if there was a penalty after a shot, or if there was a penalty after a goal, we would set up the draw, give it to the other team, and then this player positioning would apply, where we put a player 4 meters ahead and 45 degrees to the side of closer to the goal she's defending. We're basically saying we don't have to do that anymore. So if any penalty is administered at the center following any of those things, the positioning doesn't apply. We don't have to put someone in front. They don't have to hold people back on either restraining line and only keep 3 between the lines. Because of the implementation of free movement, it basically doesn't make sense anymore. If you have a position, then the players can, as long as they stay on side, the players do not have to stay back in certain areas or position themselves in certain areas. The only requirement is, again, that there are no more than 12 players on the field. Okay, stopping and starting play. Okay, this basically was clarifying where and when the player positioning is set up for when there's no foul for a restart. Basically, if there's a boundary, an accident, and inadvertent whistle, something like that. And so basically it just cleans it up, and all we now have is a rule that says you have to be 4 meters from the ball carrier when we are having these restarts. Excuse me. In the CSA, the restart will be at the dot. When it's outside of the CSA, the restart will be at the spot. Basically, regardless of every player where it is, every player has to be a minimum of 4 meters from the restart before the whistle is blown to restart play. Okay, alternate possession. So previously we had that if the goalie was out and there were 2 fouls, offsetting fouls, and there had to be an alternate possession, the goalie if the goalie was closest, the goalie had to be involved in the alternate possession, even if they had nothing to do with it. So basically what happened was, oh wait, there's a question. Let me make sure it's not about the other one. Oh, okay. Okay, I think we're going to move on. Sorry, going to the alternate possession. So what would happen before is there was an alternate possession called, the goalie was closest. The goalie's team was not getting the ball. The opposing team was getting the ball. So the goalie would have to go 4 meters behind, and that would leave an open cage many times. So now what we're saying is if there's an alternate possession and the goalie has not committed the foul, the goalie is not involved in the foul, she just happened to be the closest, then that goalie is not required to stay and be a part of the alternate possession. They can move back to their circle if they were not involved in the foul. And then the next closest teammate would participate in the alternate possession. And I should also clarify further, the goalie doesn't have to not participate. The goalie doesn't have to be the one to go back to the circle, or she doesn't necessarily have to not be involved in it. But if she chooses to return to the circle, then the next closest player will be involved in the alternate possession. Okay, boundaries. So during the past few seasons, we had players would retrieve a ball out of bounds, and they had a couple options. They could run onto the field and commence play. They could run onto the field and pause before commencing play with the self-start, or they could come onto the field and wait for the official to blow the whistle, and then they would commence play. So that's no longer the situation. Play commences once the player, with a self-start, once the player with the ball steps on the field. They go get the ball, it's gone out of bounds, they enter, once they re-enter the field, then play is started. The opponents have to give them 2 meters of free space. It's not a foul, it's just a boundary turnover. So they do have to give her 2 meters of free space and to enter the field. But once she enters the field, the defenders can commence play. Oh, I should say, and the reminder on that, that throwing a ball in from out of bounds is a foul. It's no longer a reset. If they throw it in from out of bounds, it's a turnover. It's a free position to the opposing team, brought in from the sideline, everybody else 4 meters away, and it is a self-start. If a shot on goal misses and the goalie is the closest to the ball when it crosses the boundary, before, the goalie would go get the ball, restart in her circle, and play would go from there. Now, anybody, including the goalie, can go get the ball and start at the spot where the ball went out of bounds. The goalie doesn't have to be that person, but she may. But also, the goalie no longer has the privilege of getting the ball and bringing it back into their goal circle for a restart. So the situation at the end line is pretty much the situation on the sidelines. Any player from the team can get it, even if the goalie was closest in her circle. Doesn't have to be the goalie, and it no longer comes back to the circle for that self-start. Okay, the goalkeeper rules. This is the most basic of goalkeeping rules, and I just love it in its simplicity. If any part of the goalkeeper is within the circle or on the line, the goalie's in. So the goalie can step out with 1 foot and pick up a ball and bring it in, no problem, nothing illegal whatsoever. The goalie can step out and have 1 foot on the line and 1 foot out, still legal. We actually have a graphic here that is a piece that we created for USA Lacrosse. And I think it's in resources. I'm not really sure where it is, I confess, but I believe it's in the resource library. And it clearly helps with this understanding of goal circle rules. Goalie has both feet in the circle, she's in. 1 foot in the circle, 1 foot out, she's in. 1 foot in the circle and 1 foot anywhere on the line, she's still in. Both feet on the line, she's still in. 1 foot on the line and 1 foot out, she's still in. The only way the goalie is considered entirely out of the circle is if she has both feet outside of the plane of the circle, on the ground or in the air. There's no partial anymore, and for that, I'm very happy. Still, the idea of raking is still the same. That rule has not changed. Just for clarification, if the goalie reaches out wherever her feet are and covers the ball and pulls it back in and no other player is within playing distance, absolutely fine. If she chooses to do that when there are others in playing distance, that would be considered a cover. That's a goal circle violation that would go to the dot. Is the new goal circle rule apply to both high school and youth games? Excellent question, Yana. And I'm going to say yes, I believe that it does. I have not heard anything to the contrary, but I am going to make myself a little note and follow up on that just to make sure. But yes, I believe that there are no differences, that the goal circle is the same in the high school and youth. Do her feet have to be grounded? Well, one of her feet has to be touching a part of the line or inside the plane of the line, the cylinder of the line. So on the ground or in the air would be considered within the plane of the circle. If you look at that last diagram where it says goalie is out, goalie has both feet outside the plane of the circle, on the ground or in the air. So if she has 1 foot in the air, but it is, if you're looking at it like it was a cylinder and her foot is inside, then that would be, she would still be considered in the circle. Good questions. These are great. Okay, moving on. This is a minor change, but it's basically just because we no longer require people to stand, we're sort of removing that idea of that being a minor foul because there's really no requirement for it. You still, however, that can consider this delay of game if there's a repeated inability to move away or inability to go where you were, you instructed them to go. If you're consistently asking someone to go behind a player and then stand, take their position and stand, that could be considered a delay of game, and basically because it'd be a repeated foul. Are you saying if a ball goes out of bounds and the closest player to the ball is the goalie while in her circle, that the ball does not go to the goalie in the circle to restart? Yes, I am. That's exactly what I'm saying, Tony. The ball will start at the boundary where it went out. The goalie can start with it, or any other player can start with it. But it does no longer, does it go back to the goalie in the circle for a restart. It's a self-start boundary at the spot it went out. Okay. Great. Okay. Moving on. Excuse me. Oh, okay. So this changes the rule for the penalty for a keeper in the goal circle. So the keeper is in the goal circle and there's a goal circle violation by the attack. They step in and the goalie restarts before we've blown our whistle. Again, we want to remind you that we're going to really try the preventative officiating to prevent false starts when the team gains possession. We really want to hit that whistle quickly so the goalkeeper doesn't cause a false start by her excitement or enthusiasm of getting the ball and getting rid of it. However, if that does happen, that is considered a false start by the goalkeeper in the goal circle. The goalkeeper is allowed to stay in the goal circle. The free position goes to the opposing team at the dot and nobody would go behind. The goalie would stay in the circle though. And I think I covered all that. Okay. Definition of terms, we removed the term body checking basically because we use other terms for checking now. It's either a push or a cross check, trip, whatever, but the idea of body checking it's, as we say, it's outdated, but it's not really referenced in the rule book anymore because the play of the game has changed so much. In this situation, we just want to remind you as officials that you continue to protect the safety of the players and fair play of the game. Make sure that you're explaining calls within the language of the rules, but most importantly, that you're making the calls to keep everyone safe. There are numerous editorial changes in the book. This will be up as Jeremy said, so you're welcome to go in and look at these and make sure that the changes are see that the changes are noted in the book. We've basically covered most of them. These are editorial changes, are basically correct errors and just try to clarify things. They're not really major rule changes. They're just for clarifications, and they're updated when the rules committee notices that there are a few that need to be changed. That's when they'll make those changes. So let's talk about the 2022 points of emphasis. These are the 3 points of emphasis. Sportsmanship, rough and dangerous play, and shooting space. So the question is, how do each of these relate to officiating? I would say in terms of sportsmanship, we want to encourage respectful interactions between players, coaches, and officials. And we encourage that by basically modeling appropriate behavior, responding to coaches' questions quickly, answering players' questions, and not helping things to escalate if they start to escalate. Whether a team is winning or losing, our job is basically to make sure that the game is played fairly and that the athletes are respecting each other. We can use those cards if we need to, but that is our goal and our job as officials. Rough and dangerous play, it's really very simple. Use your cards. Do not tolerate rough play. Do not tolerate a player that's out of control. Do not tolerate swings with the stick that cannot be controlled. Do not tolerate rough play because it escalates. If you allow a player to put another player to the ground, the next time that interaction happens by either player, it could escalate. It could get worse. So our job as officials is to not allow the play to get out of control, to use our cards effectively and efficiently to keep the game safe and to discourage this play from continuing. I think I have another question. Has FHSAA introduced any new rules specific to Florida high school lacrosse for 2022 not mentioned in USA lacrosse? Excellent question, Harry. Jeremy, if you're there, I'm going to let you answer that.
We have not introduced any new rules for the upcoming season. Everything is still NFHS, and then obviously the helmet for for girls lacrosse. So that's the only difference for the upcoming season from our office.
Great. Thank you.
If I could jump in, the only change is really not on the officials end, it's on the schools end. We changed how our playoff structure goes into sport and how teams advance within the playoffs. That's the biggest major change within the FHSAA. But once again, those are not rule changes that affect the game itself.
Alex, is that on the central hub, the information related to that, or where would somebody find that?
That information is located in our administrative procedures. So it's on the FHSAA website, FHSAA.com under administrative procedures.
Great.
And in the lacrosse sport manual.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
There's one about water breaks there, Alex.
Yeah, the question is just water breaks, question mark. I assume that means, are we still having water breaks?
We are. There is an item that was introduced by the Sport Advisory Committee this last go around, but it's a 2-year process for any rule changes. So currently the water break is still implemented. I believe in both levels it was approved to do away with it, but it still needs another year of readings before it can be implemented and approved.
Okay, thank you. And then my final point of emphasis is shooting space. It's a tough rule to understand. It's one of the most difficult rules in girls lacrosse. I would ask you to do whatever you can to educate yourself on this. The whole goal is to minimize the risk of injury to the players, the defensive players, and the teammates of the attack players. So there are plenty of resources out there. I did a shooting space convention presentation for the lacrosse convention. I did a shooting space presentation for FHSAA. I would encourage you to educate yourself and learn as much as you can about that. The goal is, our job as officials is to make that call to prevent injury. It's very important. And the final note on that is the attack player is always responsible for not shooting if there's a shooting space violation. So what does that mean? I blow the whistle and 3 steps later, the player takes a shot because they were, running in there. That is absolutely a dangerous propel cardable foul, and you'd have offsetting fouls on that. Jeremy, during a hydration break, are coaches allowed to coach the players?
I'll jump in on that.
Thanks, Alex.
There is no rule that precludes them from not coaching. So it is a timeout. It is a break. The purpose is for hydration, but there is no rule that says that they cannot coach their players.
Great, thank you. All right, and the final thing we're introducing to you tonight is that there is now a Florida State rules interpreter. So any questions related to rules interpretations can go to this email address, FHSAA Girls Lacrosse RI, which stands for rules interpreter, at hotmail.com. I am the interim state rules interpreter for this year, so those emails will come to me. If you have questions regarding the rules, specifically, they should be sent to that email address. And then what we will do is make a decision, a determination on that, give you a ruling on it, and that information will then in turn go back out to officials across the country, across the state, excuse me. So everyone is aware that we're interpreting the rule the same way. And that's it. Let me see if I have any more questions. I don't think so.
No, not that I'm seeing, Colleen. Thank you. And just to kind of piggyback on the rules interpreter email that we have set up and kind of what we're going forward, as Colleen mentioned, she is the interim rules interpreter to kind of get this process going moving forward. We will be setting out nomination form to our girls lacrosse association leaders, so they can then nominate individuals who believe would fit this role. Obviously, they would have to have U.S. lacrosse background. We have a couple of questions that we've worked with Colleen and Deb as far as getting it set up that would need to be answered And then once we get those names nominated to us, we will send them over to US Lacrosse so they can double check on their end as far as who meets the requirements, what the background is with lacrosse, USA Lacrosse, and make a determination moving forward for a permanent girls lacrosse rules interpreter. So be on the lookout if we have any leadership members from associations on the call. Currently, be on the lookout here probably within the next week or so. We hope to have someone in place to kind of go through things and help calling out by the middle of the season. So at least have some work and guidance with her regarding what needs to be done. So again, be on the lookout for that. It will be coming out here soon. So I have a couple other questions that have popped up. Just a clarification at the conversation, Barb was very specific that with the exchange of sticks, the player did not have to enter TSA. The player had to, I'm assuming, hand it over and receive it while on the field, could not throw it. Could you give a little clarification on that, Colleen?
Yep, that's true. She cannot throw it. They have to exchange it, hand to hand, no throwing at each other. But no, the substitution must take place in the substitution area. It's like subbing like a player. The player would go into the box and a new player would come on. Same thing with the stick. The stick goes into the box and a new stick comes on.
Perfect.
And yes, the manual is posted. The 2022 USA Lacrosse manual is posted. It's in the resource library. It's been updated. All new diagrams. I think there's a lot of really good information in there, and I would encourage you all to use it. It's a supplement to the lacrosse rules book, and it's really just to help officials do their job better and more effectively and efficiently.
All right. So if there are any other questions, please feel free. We're about 15 minutes until the goal of our time. Deb, I know you're here with us. Did you have anything else you wanted to add regarding kind of moving forward our plans with the rules interpreter or anything like that? If you're there, please feel free to step in. We have one other question. If the stick is on the ground in the substitution area, can the player exchange the sticks?
Yes, I assume that means that the player that's carrying the one stick, can they drop it and take the other one? Absolutely.
Awesome. It looks like Deb may have stepped away. Oh,
nope, I'm here. I was just waiting for the question to go through. No, I just wanted to say that we'll be following up on this one with a boys webinar on the rules as well. And we have a boys rules interpreter in place, which we'll talk about on that next webinar. And yes, Colleen always does an exceptional job, not only on these webinars, but everything that she touches, which is why I talk her into so many things and she never says no to me. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you. It looks like we can head out and enjoy the rest of our evening a little bit early. Again, as mentioned earlier, if anyone missed it, if you were wanting to rewatch this just for further clarification, you missed something, it will be posted on the FHSAA website or on the FHSAA Central Hub, sorry. So please feel free to go back and view that as needed at any time. So thank you all for joining us this evening. Colleen, Deb, thank you for joining us tonight. Alex, Taylor, appreciate you guys being on, helping as well. And enjoy the rest of your evening and good luck this season.
Thanks.